Tai Lung, Syndrome, and even Light Yagami. As weird as it may sound, these guys, among many other great villains, were once considered heroes, just before things went extremely bad. But why is this the case? What traits of heroism did any of these bad guys show to make us think they were once heroes? The truth is, before we can understand the real reason why every great villain was once considered a hero, we need to first look at what they started as and the exact point they turned to villainy, and why. We begin with a snow leopard named Tai Lung. This dude was found as a tiny, helpless baby left at the gates of a big palace. Master Shifu found him and loved him like his very own son, even though they were basically of the same size. Anyway, because Shifu loved him so much, he taught him everything he knew about Kung Fu. And boy, was Tai Lung good at it.
It was never enough for Tai Lung.
On top of all that, he dreamed of becoming the Dragon Warrior, and Shifu made him believe he would someday. However, when that time came, the oldest and wisest master, Oogway, refused to give Tai Lung the title or the scroll. So, Tai Lung looked at his dad, Shifu, hoping he would speak up for him. But Shifu stayed quiet. That silence broke his heart more than Oogway's rejection. In his mind, he had done everything right, but he was still rejected by his favorite master. So, he went on a rampage, hurting the very valley he was supposed to guard, all because he felt he was owed that prize. That action turned him into a villain and got him sentenced to life imprisonment. Now, we have a leopard who showed potential very early on, but who we could tell would be trouble because he was spoiled and too ambitious. Yet we still want to consider him a hero when it was almost clear he would become a villain. Well, this is the beginning of the confusion, so maybe Syndrome from The Incredibles can help us understand better. In a world of superheroes, Buddy had a huge brain and an even bigger heart for his favorite hero, Mr. Incredible. He even called himself Incrediboy and spent his time making rocket boots so he could help his idol fight crime. The kid wanted to be a hero so badly, but he wasn't exactly spoiled like Tai Lung was, since he was rejected right from the get-go by Mr. Incredible.
I am your #1 fan!
For a kid who worshipped him, being told, "You're not one of us," felt like the world was ending. That rejection turned Buddy's admiration into a cold, hard knot of hate. Years later, he became Syndrome, who still built incredible robots and high-tech gadgets. So whatever made him a hero in the first place, especially when, as Buddy, he was constantly getting in the way. This kid was even acting like a villain with the way he interrupted the work of his idol and couldn't let him concentrate on fighting crime. He was almost killed by a bomb and had to be saved by Mr. Incredible. So what exactly made him a hero? Maybe Charles Muntz can answer that. In the movie Up, Charles also faced a similar fate of rejection. A long time ago, everyone loved him. He was a world-famous explorer who flew a giant blimp and discovered amazing things. He was the hero that little kids like Carl and Ellie looked up to. He told everyone that adventure is out there, and he really believed it. But then Charles found a skeleton of a giant colorful bird. When he showed it to other scientists, they called him a liar and told the whole world he was a fraud.
The organization strips months of his membership.
This was his breaking point. Charles felt so rejected and embarrassed that he flew away and promised he wouldn't come back until he found a live bird to prove he was right. He stayed in the jungle for a long, long time. So long that he started to go a little bit crazy. His goal shifted from discovery to obsession, and soon he was willing to hurt anyone, even a little boy and an old man, just to prove he was still the best. When we look at Tai Lung, Syndrome, and Charles Muntz, we see a pattern. All three of them started with something special. Tai Lung had his talent for Kung Fu, Syndrome had his inventions, and Charles had his bravery. These are all things we usually see in the good guys. They worked hard, believed in their dreams, and were really, really good at what they did. The point that turned them into villains was also a moment of rejection. They felt like the world, or the people they loved, told them they weren't good enough. And that incident was like a spark that lit a fire and changed their reason for being. But here is where things get confusing. Their skills didn't change when they turned evil. Tai Lung was still a kung fu master. Syndrome was still a tech genius. And Charles Muntz was still a great explorer. If you looked at their talents alone, you couldn't tell the difference between the heroes they were and the villains they became. Basically, if their good traits stayed the same when they turned evil, then maybe their talents were not what made them heroes in the first place. So, what was it? Well, answering that question starts with understanding the fact that not every great villain was rejected by a mentor or a hero. Some of them became villains for a completely different reason, and that makes our puzzle even harder to solve. In the third episode of Arcane, we see a little girl named Powder standing alone on a ledge, clutching a small mechanical monkey. Inside that toy are powerful blue crystals. She sees her older sister Vi fighting a losing battle against some scary monster. Powder wants so badly to help, to show her family that she isn't just the Jinx who messes everything up. She winds the toy, sets it down, and watches it walk away. One final time, the monkey claps its cymbals and the world turns blue. The explosion is beautiful to her, but the aftermath is a nightmare. That single blast, meant to save her family, ends up taking them away forever. It kills her adoptive brothers, Milo and Clagor, and leads to the eventual death of her father figure, Vander. Vi, broken by grief, slaps her and calls her a Jinx.
Why did you leave me? Because you're a jinx.
She walks away to cool off, but Powder does not know that. She only sees her sister abandoning her. You see, in Arcane, Powder becomes Jinx because of grief first, and rejection second. She already lost her parents. Now, she believes she killed her brothers and her father figure. This experience led to PTSD, psychosis, and borderline personality disorders that later shaped her villainy. But then Silco made things worse, telling her to accept her new name as Jinx and for her to become what they fear. Because of this, one can say Jinx was obviously a hero at some point, but grief turned her evil. However, when you look at other villains like Mr. Freeze and Two-Face Harvey, this whole hero versus villain thingy starts to get confusing again. Take Victor Freeze. Before he was the cold, scary Mr. Freeze, he was one of the most brilliant scientists in the world. Dude was a hero in a lab coat whose only goal, his only why, was his wife, Nora. She had a sickness that was going to take her life. So Victor used his genius to freeze her in a special tank to keep her alive until he could find a cure. He was a man of pure love and science, but a greedy boss named Ferris Boyle only cared about money. He tried to shut off Victor's project, and in the fight that followed, Victor was pushed into a pile of freezing chemicals.
Doc.
His body changed so much that he could never feel warmth again. He had to wear a big, heavy suit just to stay alive. He didn't want to be a criminal, but his love for Nora was stolen from him, and that grief turned him cold, literally and figuratively. Harvey Dent from Batman, the animated series, is another tragic villain, except his case is more peculiar because he started as a hero. In Gotham City, everyone called him the White Knight. He was the district attorney, the hero who put the bad guys behind bars and made the streets safe. He was brave, smart, and a true friend to Bruce Wayne. Unfortunately, Harvey had a lot of hidden anger from when he was a little boy, and he tried so hard to be the perfect hero that he pushed it all deep inside. But one day, a terrible explosion scarred half of his face, and he let all that anger out at once. He became Two-Face and stopped believing in the law and started believing in a coin. He went from being the best man at saving people through justice to being a man who decides who lives or dies on a 50-50 flip. When we look at Jinx, Victor, and Harvey, we see people who had heart. At one point, people trusted and believed in them. Some even looked up to them. Truth is, if you had met them before everything fell apart, you probably would have called them heroes without hesitation. But here's the thing, while we thought looking at their tragic past would give us the answer to why a great villain was once a hero, we found out that it just opened up more questions. This is because when you look at this next group of villains, it makes us wonder if we've been examining this the wrong way the whole time. In the first season of Avatar: Legend of Korra, we meet Amon, another villain with a tragic past, except that he is different from guys like Jinx and Mr. Freeze. This is because Amon actually considers himself a hero, not a villain. But long before he called himself Amon and put on a scary mask, he was a kind-hearted kid called Noatak. He loved his little brother Tarlok more than anything. Unfortunately, their father Yakon was a very mean man who taught them how to use bloodbending to hurt people and control them. This is because he was trying to use his sons to exert revenge on Avatar Aang, who took his bending away. However, the kids hated every bit of the training, but didn't have a choice. Soon, Noatak began to enjoy bloodbending and turn into a cold-blooded person. Except he was not at all interested in helping his father take revenge. So one day, he stood up to his father by using bloodbending on him.
What are you gonna do about it? You're the weak one.
After that incident, he left home and never returned. He later changed his name to Amon and started a revolution to cleanse the whole world of benders in an attempt to equalize everyone. He told people that bending was an impurity that caused all the sadness in the world. Even though he was doing scary things in his own mind, he was still that little boy trying to make things fair for everyone. If you called him a villain, he would laugh at you because he considered himself a liberator. Light Yagami was another villain who saw himself as a hero. Light was a star student, the kind of kid every parent wants. He was smart, hardworking, and he hated seeing criminals get away with bad things. He felt like the world was rotting. So when he found the Death Note and discovered that if he wrote a name in it, that person would die, he felt he had found his purpose. Most people would be terrified, but Light saw it as a tool. He decided he was the only one smart and worthy enough to use this power to get rid of all the evil people. Every time he wrote a name down, he told himself he was doing it for justice. He even killed people who tried to stop him, because in his mind, anyone who did was stopping goodness itself. When you look at Amon and Light, you see something very different from the villains we talked about before. Though they have the talent like our first villains, they lacked the big hearts of our second. They also added something else, a vision built on heroism.
I will become the god of this new world.
And because of this, we can finally answer the question of why every great villain was once a hero. So we have finally reached the end of our puzzle. We looked at the broken dreams of Tai Lung and Syndrome, the shattered hearts of Jinx and Mr. Freeze, and the big scary visions of Amon and Light Yagami. We saw that every single one of them started out with something great. They had talent, love, or a desire to make things better. But if they had all the same ingredients as the good guys, we have to ask the most important question of all. What is the actual line that separates a hero from a villain? Why did Tai Lung's hard work turn into a disaster, while someone like Po stayed good? To understand this, we have to look at Tigress. She is a lot like Tai Lung. She was brought to Shifu as a cub and trained just as hard as the leopard. The only difference was that she wasn't spoiled. Shifu didn't even show her any love for fear of creating another Tai Lung. She was rejected early and could have gone dark from there. However, she didn't. She just became very grumpy. But things got bad for Tigress when the Dragon Warrior title was given to Po, a big clumsy panda who fell out of the sky. Everyone, including Shifu, who, by the way, wasn't pleased with Oogway's choice this time around, felt Tigress deserved that title. But of course, it never came to her, and she still didn't turn dark, Even years later, when the title was to pass on from Poe, a former criminal was named the Dragon Warrior and not her. Yet Tigress doesn't go on a rampage, even though she has a temper like Tai Lung. So what is the big difference? You see, Tigress didn't feel like the world owed her the prize. Tai Lung was raised like a spoiled prince who felt entitled. And when he didn't get what he wanted, he felt like the universe had robbed him. Tigress, on the other hand, didn't have that same spoiled brat energy. She worked hard because it was the right thing to do, and wasn't doing it because she wanted a trophy. She also sees the bigger picture that Kung Fu should be used to help the helpless, and as far as the Kung Fu Panda franchise is concerned, Tigress has been helping people. So can we still say Tai Lung was once a hero after this? The answer is yes, because if he hadn't felt entitled to the Dragon Warrior title and hadn't craved external validation so badly, he would have ended up a hero like Tigress. A little anger management class might have helped too. He only needed to keep his talent as a kung fu master, add a bit of humility and moral compass, and then boom, we have another formidable hero on our hands. This is something other rejected villains, like Syndrome and Muntz, can also learn from. But what about those guys wronged by grief? Well, their case is simply straightforward. They had the skill and the heart of a hero. Unfortunately, a major traumatic experience sidetracked them. If they had stayed on the path of good as they had begun on, they would have become heroes. Remember that a hero is someone who can lose everything and still choose to be kind. Batman and Vi lost the ones they loved and made mistakes too, but none of that hurt drove them into villainy as it did with Mr. Freeze and Jinx. Basically, a villain is a hero who decides that because they were hurt, they have the right to hurt everyone else. Jinx let Silco convince her that she should become the thing people fear. But the real heroes are the ones who take their pain and turn it into a shield to protect others from feeling the same way. As for the villains Amon and Light Yagami, their case is trickier because they already see themselves as heroes, even when they are really not. Yet we can still consider them heroes because if they had chosen humility and kindness over brutality and pride, boom, another set of great heroes. Instead, they chose to kill and destroy lives, which took out the heroic bit. The bitter truth is that the journey of a hero and the journey of a villain look exactly the same for a long, long time. They both face rejection, feel pain, and want to be great. The only reason a villain becomes a villain is that they reached a point where they said, "Me first." They decided their pride was more important than the rules, their grief was more important than other people's lives, or their vision was more important than being kind. Finally, every great villain was once a hero because greatness is just power, and power doesn't care if you use it for good or evil. It's the choices we make when we're hurt, rejected, or ignored that decide which mask we wear. So, in the end, a hero is just a person who stayed a hero even when they had every reason to become a villain. But no matter the path a potential hero chooses to take, they always end up being a guide for us humans, even though they are villains. We made a video recently that talks about every time villains try to tell us something, including the one that delivers the most painful truth. You can check it out after this.